This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you an analysis of Finance Minister's reply to the budget discussions. The participants are Sharad Kohli, Economic Analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR Correspondent.
In her reply to the budget discussions in Parliament, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman revisited the key thrust areas in Budget 2022-23, which will sustain the momentum of economic rebound seen after the pandemic. She said India has emerged from the COVID crisis as the fastest growing major economy in the world, and this growth momentum will continue in the coming year. Sharadji, among the various budget announcements, what do you see as the most important initiative which will be instrumental in sustaining this growth momentum?
Well, if you ask me, the biggest initiative and the most effective and the most powerful initiative which the government has taken in this budget is thrust on infrastructure, the push to infrastructure. So 7.5 lakh crores of infrastructure allocation, to my mind, is the biggest push in these difficult times, and the time when the government was doing a tightrope walk as far as the fiscal deficit is concerned. But the government's commitment to the national infrastructure pipeline, the more than 100 lakh crore commitment to develop country's infrastructure, focus on growth, focus on generating employment, focus on balanced development of all the sectors of economy, touching each aspect of economy has been the thrust. But the biggest takeaway, as I said, for me is 7.5 lakh crores of allocation to the infrastructure.
In fact, in her speech yesterday, the FM cited a Reserve Bank of India study that every rupee spent on capital expenditure brought a return of 2 rupees 45 paise in the first year and 3 rupees 14 paise in the second year. When we talk of the multiplier effect of capex on the economy, can you please elaborate how this manifests itself and which all sectors or segments of the economy benefit from it?
Well, I think the finance minister was very conservative in giving the multiplier effect, because if you go by the economic theory, the multiplier effect, say for example, if suppose there is no road in a particular area of the country, the multiplier effect is almost 8 times, which means every 100 rupees spent for construction of road for that area has an effect of 800 rupees. Because, the transport reaches there, children are able to go to school, business starts, people get access to a lot of facilities in the nearby towns and cities. You see transportation of goods become easy. Plus, building of the road itself develops the economy around. You will have a contractor involved, you will have probably bitumen being ordered, you will have, if it is cemented road, you will see cement being ordered, if there are pavements being built, bricks are being bought, people get employment. So I think the effect is indeed multiplier. And I think the finance minister was very conservative in giving 2 or 3 times multiplier effect, because if you go by the theories of economics, as part of the infrastructure thrust which this government has been pushing, I think the road initiative has been one of the major contributors. The speed at which 25,000 kilometers of commitment in the budget for the national highways and other roads, I think will completely change the whole structure of country's transportation system, because you will have commercial goods moving, the Bharatmala project, then you have the road initiative leading right up to Ladakh. So I think it's a four-cornered development which is leading to thrust on road. And I have a feeling that there'll be a day when we will be comparable to any developed country.
Sharadji, she observed that while capex is being increased by more than 35%, the revenue expenditure is being rationalized to grow only by slightly over 3% in FY23, showing a visible deceleration. Can you explain the rationale behind this strategy of restricting revenue expenditure?
I think the government, as I said, there's a tightrope walk as far as the fiscal deficit is concerned. So if you enhance in a particular area, if you enhance the capex, the total budget size is about 39-40 lakh crores. So you have to manage your resources. It's like managing your home. I mean, if somebody has got a budget of, let's say, 50,000 rupees as far as household is concerned, and in a particular month you end up buying, say, a refrigerator, which probably costs you, let's say, 20,000 rupees. So you will have to, implement austerity measures in cutting down some of the regular expenses. And I also feel, Sonu, that budget as an exercise is just another milestone now. The government is committed now to make the investments as and when required. If you see, during the reply in Rajya Sabha today, when somebody questioned about, let's say, health, or somebody questioned about Manrega, for example, that why haven't you allocated? So she said that Manrega is need-based. So whenever there is a need, and revenue expenditure can always be enhanced or reduced as per the situation, as per the requirement. But when it comes to big expenditure like infrastructure or capex, you have to have a definite allocation because these projects are long term. They need proper planning and strategy. Although you might notice in certain areas there is a pruning down which has happened, but government I think is very flexible. It can always make an announcement and enhance the revenue expenditure as per the requirements as we move forward.
Absolutely. She also countered the allegation of inflation by saying the situation has been managed well and inflation is close to RBI band, whereas in the crisis of 2008-9, it had breached 9%. In fact, RBI in its policy yesterday has also given the projection for inflation at 4.5% for next year. This shows the deft and targeted management of the crisis situation by the government using supply side tools.
Well, there are two aspects to it, Sonu. One aspect is the way you look at it, whether the glass is half empty or half full. And a case in point is very glaring, which is United States of America. Only yesterday, we saw the inflation numbers shooting up to 7.5%. I would say for the world's biggest and the world's richest economy, 7.5% inflation is clearly indicative of the fact that pandemic put us in a situation which was extremely tough to manage for best of the governments around the world. When you have $7 trillion of money chasing limited amount of goods, the inflation is ought to be rising, and the kind of liquidity which RBI and various initiatives under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan or under the pandemic related solutions and the reliefs offered by the government, I think the liquidity in the economy had to be infused, and it is that liquidity plus the supply chain disruptions which led to inflation. And of course, crude oil prices, we must not forget, even today as we talk, Sonu, they are hovering around $91, $92. So I think crude oil prices and 85% of our requirements are being imported. So there are various factors, Sonu, which are not within the control of the government. So in that situation, what you said, fiscal management, in that situation, inflation management, in that situation, supply chain management has been very, very creditable. And we must put a word of appreciation of how things have been managed. And yes, the inflation at this point of time being around between 5 and 6%, you get a lot of relief when you look at United States of America that we are at least below 7.5%. And RBI's projection of 4.5% in the year to come, I think also gives us a big relief. So as now things are opening up, as we see the supply chain disruptions ending, you will see the goods supply becoming normal and the inflation eventually is going to settle down. I have no doubt about it.
You just now mentioned about Narega, that how it is a needs-based program and how the government is always ready to increase the allocation as the year progresses and as the need is felt. In fact, fertilizer subsidy rose from budgeted 79,530 crore for FY22 to 1.4 lakh crore in revised estimates. So that shows that government is receptive to needs. So this need-based flexibility is an important aspect of the budget administration through the year.
Absolutely. And where does this come from, Sonu? You said most of it, but where does it come from? It comes from a government which has got a comprehensive majority in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So the government has confidence if at any point we need to make any amends, any changes, we need to take any need-based decisions, we need to take decisions depending upon the geopolitical situation, we need to take decisions on the basis of how the farming is doing, how the agriculture sector is doing, how the crops are coming up, how much of development on agriculture infrastructure has happened. So I think all these aspects are being kept in mind while allocation. And having said that, I would like to reiterate the fact that budget is just another milestone. There is nothing which stops the government. The parliament session goes on every 2-3 months. I have a feeling that we should not make a hype about the budget. Whatever has been planned, declared, budget is an annual exercise and no doubt a very significant exercise. But the government can always come out with another announcement. I remember, when the corporate tax cut was done some time ago, it was not done during the budget and it was a major amount. 1.4 lakh crores of relief was given in corporate tax, which never happened during the budget. These announcements were normally related to budget, but that point of time we saw that the announcement was made out of the budget season, I would say. I feel that government is very open. Also, another aspect here, Sonu, which would be worth mentioning. I remember Prime Minister talking about zero-based budgeting. I think the government is gradually moving towards zero-based. Zero-based budgeting, for the sake of our listeners who do not know what zero-based budgeting is, you don't look at previous year's expenditure. I would rather set everything to zero, see the situation on ground as on the day. I see the problem and I do zero-based budgeting. I don't just increase a certain percentage from the previous year allocation. I make a fresh allocation depending upon which sector is the attention required.
And she also made a mention of the initiatives and schemes of the government, including Jan Dhan, rural electrification, Gati Shakti, saying all these schemes are paving a way towards Atmanirbhar Bharat and Amrit Kal. And she also highlighted the booming of the startup sector and the unicorns that have come up in these two difficult years. So you feel that this crisis has been turned into an opportunity by the government with, of course, the support of all stakeholders, and they reflect a constant effort by the government to drive entrepreneurship and jobs?
Undoubtedly, it's better to be a job giver than a job seeker any day. You can probably give job to more than one person, and when you seek job, you're the only person seeking the job. It's as simple as that. And exactly, the number of unicorns, we saw 42 unicorns coming during the year 21, I think, which is a great landmark. India today is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world after America and China. And I think this only shows the entrepreneurial skills of the people backed by government policies and schemes. But I think, Sonu, very important aspect here is that this government, when it said Amrit Kal, like India at 100, we are at 75 this year on 15th of August, and we will be heading towards India at 100. So there was a lot of criticism being done on the government that why are you talking of 25 years? Why don't you talk of problems at hand? But I think government has a very long-term vision, and a lot of these policies, they will start paying off in the long term. So I think people need to understand, it's again the glass half empty, half full, that if you really want your children to be benefiting, you want a good future for your children, you're looking for a very solid base to head where the country wants to. I think a long-term vision is required, and the government is not worried whether it will be in power after 10, 20 years or whether it will not be in power. I think what is important is to take decisions which benefit the country, which take India towards not just a $5 trillion economy, but also towards next goal, which is $10 trillion economy. And I don't see India, lagging behind in that. I mean, I see India, Sonu, as an economist, I see India becoming an economic superpower in the next 5 years. 65% of our population is less than 35 years of age. I think we have a very, very dynamic and very, very energy-packed lot of people who can drive this country, backed by government policies, to be a shining star in the sky.
Sharadji, for all this to happen, for the country to be on this path of high economic growth, in fact, the fastest growing economy in the world, we need investment, government investment, private investment, foreign investment. In fact, foreign investors have been coming in big numbers to India. She highlighted that the government had removed 25,000 compliances and repealed 1,500 laws for ease of doing business. So you feel ease of doing business is also one of the major keys to our economic growth?
If I'm an investor coming from, let's say, Europe, and I want to set up my business in India, what is the first thing I would look? I would see how easy or difficult is it to go and set up a base in that country. And I think easing these compliances, removing those laws which are an obstruction, bottleneck to people coming and doing business in India was an extremely important step. See, now India is going to become the largest beneficiary of FDI in the times to come because the +1 China policy is now working. People have not a very good feeling about China because China was the world's factory. And I do feel a lot of investment is in. And I think also, Sonu, the government's initiative of capex, going back to what we started with, I think that will also propel private investment because as a matter of protocol, private investment follows public investment, which is government spending. So I think with the government spending coming, the private investment would be generated, which will in turn generate employment. Private investment will follow government spending. So I think people should keep that in mind, and this will in turn bring foreign direct investment. I think India is on a growth track, and I see this only growing by leaps and bounds in the years to come. I also make a forecast here of the benefit of our listeners that even if there is a geopolitical tension around the world, I see India still being a shining star because the most developed and the richest part of the world may be disturbed at the geopolitical level, but India will come out as a winner. And I think the investors are going to look at India as one of the most peaceful places, one of the most stable places, one of the most favorite destinations as far as investments are concerned.
Sharadji, thank you so much for this in-depth discussion and throwing light on various aspects of FM's reply to budget discussions in Parliament.
Thank you so much.
You were listening to an analysis of Finance Minister's reply to the budget discussions. The participants were Sharad Kohli, Economic Analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.